Okay, talk and say something. See if I can hear you now.
Hello?
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you now. I was
Okay, all right.
trying to get this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends from beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster who's gonna wake you right up. It's me, Vinegreal0423, aka Frobbles, aka Turbo Professor Joshua 9000. I'm here with our very turbo guest.
Oh, dear Scooter. Hey, I'm
Hey,
I'm
hey,
just
all
looking
right.
at all those flying
Before we
cats.
get any further, before another word is said, there's a very important question that just needs to be asked with you, and that is, what is your stance? Do you think that Vinegreal0423 was responsible for the shelling of the WCYF in 1891? Or do you think Vinegreal2256 used his signature mind-controlling Szechuan sauce to disarm the ionic cell oxidators implanted in the subdermal nanobotic quantum molecular multiplasma radifraculator, thereby triggering a surge of toxically acyclic radiation from Vinegreal9576's self-calibrating electronic nuclear resonance device, effectively obliterating both Professor Clemens and Chemistry Steve's laboratories?
Ooh, that's a tough choice. I have to let me think about it. Um, was there Szechuan sauce in one of those, or was that
Yes. Yeah, the
it,
Szechuan sauce, if chosen, would play a pivotal role in the framing of Vinegreal 2216.
Vinegrill 2216? I'd have to say the second one then for sure.
Yeah, you think he was framed?
I would say it sounds suspicious to me, very suspicious.
Well, since we're in agreement on that, we can proceed with the podcast. Anyway, for those uncultured souls out there who don't recognize you, why don't you go ahead and give an introduction?
So I'm Dear Scooter. I make the Sleep With Me podcast. It's a podcast that puts people to sleep with bedtime stories that are pretty. I don't even think I have it opening. I don't even have that good of uh, meanders. I'm gonna have to listen back to this podcast like 10 or 12 times to appreciate that opening.
Oh, the opening question.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you could tell I ask that to every guest.
It definitely felt like it felt like it could have been more uh, a little bit more. There was just so much information that I really appreciated it because my show gives out tons of information too, but not as effectively or efficiently.
Yeah, it's just kind of just stumbling around, just kind of, going through, just kind of taking it slow, just snaking its way around the maze of the
Exactly.
Dark Knight. Yeah. So I do have a few legitimate questions to ask you though, and this is a primarily comedy podcast that I run here, so there's going to be a lot of nonsensical questions, but sprinkled in there is going to be a few. So I want to start off with our first serious question, which is like when you record like the 8 hour episodes, the all night episodes, do you just do them all in one chunk? Or do you do like, all right, I'm going to do an hour today and then an hour tomorrow, and then you just kind of like piece together, the stuff for it? Or
Yeah, so those are all edited together. I think the longest I've ever done, I think I did a 12-hour live stream, but with listeners helping me a few years ago. So it was like I would do an hour, then a listener would do a half hour, and then I would do an hour. So yeah,
so,
I would dream of being able to do 6 or 8 hours, but it's kind of scary, you know. So I'd be like, oh man, like what if I stall out at hour four or lose my voice or something?
well, speaking of dreams, it couldn't one say your whole show could be a series of dreams? Like each episode is like a dream state? Because I'm the kind of person I add like context and thematic details and everything to everything I see. I can't just accept that some things in life are truly random. There has to be meaning and symbolism and everything. So it's like, I've been pondering some sort of explanation, like for like if there's like symbolism in your show or anything, which first of all, I guess that's a question on its own. Are there things in the show that are just kind of like go over a lot of people's heads, or that like have some kind of deeper meaning, or maybe an inside joke with like someone or your friends or whatever, or things like that in the show?
I mean, there's definitely like I definitely make references all the time. Not so much like inside jokes, but like to people that might be fans of something. So it's like if I like something and I know other people like it, like Space Kittens, like might come up. Like it's like, oh yeah, like, but it would be like slid in there and just a tangent, just for the people that happen to be awake and could appreciate that. And then every once in a while, I'll get an email about stuff like that and be like, oh man, I heard you mention like Space Kitten T-shirts and the cosmic meaning behind that, and and then I'm like, oh man, somebody actually heard it. And then like the bigger stuff, like you're talking about, I think when you make stuff, it's kind of hard. Like like everything that I am comes out in the podcast, right? Like I try to filter it and make it sleepy. But if I have something on my mind a certain week, somehow it's going to trickle down into the podcast. So my job is to kind of like, you're kind of like you're saying, like cloak it as much as I can in confusion or meanders, like so that it's like buried in subtext, or like it has like it's if I'm going to talk about something, sometimes I'll talk about it on the nose, but I'll talk about it in a way that's like so obvious that people dismiss it. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
weird
you tend to be straightforward with your delivery.
yeah.
So do you like have like but like is there any times where like you'll do like a role play, like you like you have like you develop like a persona, not necessarily to a character, but just sort of a like, like when you become Scooter, you go into full on Scooter mode and you just dive in there and you're just like it's sort of a little bit like maybe an exaggerated version of yourself or something like that, or is it just literally just you and like, nah man, this is just how I am?
Oh, that's a great question. Like I think it's a like well, I think like when I'm really in the zone, like Scooter is like the best parts of my personality. Like it's probably like closer to the real me, but Scooter also doesn't have many bad days or isn't grouchy. Like so it's like the service relaxed version of me instead of the intense anxious version of me, like even though it's influenced by it. And then yeah, when I'm making episodes, like not only can I get into Scooter, but ideally if I'm doing another character, like I really am, instead of like experiencing things as the character or from the character's perspective. Like I just recorded an episode today and one of the main characters is this like sentient mule who also like may be a goddess. And so I'm trying to like, she's also the narrator of the story and she's trying to help these two characters. And so I'm like trying to like be her and then make her choices and then go into the other two characters and see their choices and then be her kind of struggling. And it can be enjoyable. And I find it goes better. Like if I'm really being the character, then I kind of get lost in them and then they have more control. And then I'm kind of sitting back watching too. I don't know. It's a weird.
This all sounds quite theatrical. Like, do you have experience? Like, did you used to be like in theater as a kid or a young adult or whatever? Like, did you used to do like improv maybe or like something like that? Like, all right, it seems there's a lot of artistic influence. So, do you have any sort of like artistic background?
I have I don't have any like actual theater or improv experience. Like I'm a fan of it, and my biggest experience is with worrying and daydreaming. And so like I think I'm like a professional daydreamer. Like I mean, ever since I was a kid, and even today, my whole life I spend a lot of times like daydreaming, and sometimes it's daydreaming about negative stuff, but sometimes it's like, oh, I wonder what would happen. Like what if I started digging a hole? Like how far could I dig a hole? Oh, what if I invented something? So it's like I spend so much of my time kind of imagining that it kind of translates nicely into the podcast. And I think all of those things are kind of about putting your own personality and control aside and then just kind of seeing where things go. And that's when the podcast is working its best too. It's like when I'm not so much making decisions as kind of observing the decisions and narrating to the listeners.
Huh. Well, that, you know, I had something to comment, but I forget what it was. But let's switch gears here. Let's talk about food. What are some of your favorite foods?
Ooh, let's see. I mean, pizza's always a favorite. I mean, if we have to get to just favorite foods, it would be either pizza or fried chicken are my two favorite. Like I actually got to try that Popeyes fried chicken sandwich while I was going, like right before the full hype happened. Like a couple weeks. This was like a couple months ago. Popeyes came out with this fried chicken sandwich. It got like this huge viral response because it was so good, and it was like this party at the Popeyes. Like everybody was in there. They ended up locking the doors because there were so many people in line, and they're running out of chicken sandwiches. And it was
was this like a random Popeyes, or was this like the national headquarters or whatever? Like, was there anything special about this Popeyes? Was it just in a big city or something, or was it just like a random location?
I don't think there was anything specifically special about it other than that there isn't a lot of other Popeyes in the area. And so like everybody that was like starting to hear about the sandwich was like, oh, I want to go there. So it was like this diverse crowd. Everybody was calm. There was like a line out the door, and then people would be eating the chicken sandwich, and everybody in line would be like, how is it? How is it? And everybody was like, oh, it's good. Like, and then you'd wait. They like ran out of ice. They ran out of soda. Like all the workers were stressed, but everybody was being really, so it was like this, it was kind of
was anyone arrested?
No, that was like, what was funny was like everybody was so calm.
What kind of event is it then?
I'm sure that at some point, like after they locked the doors, like, and like, cause then there was a huge line for the drive-through that somebody probably lost their temper, but it was after I left, I think.
I mean, unless the cops were on their side and were on it too, and like, no, hey, I want a sandwich as much as the next guy, you know, I don't want to have to, you know, arrest people. I don't want to have to step out of line and go all the way to the back, you know, because I have to deal with this person. They're behind me anyway. I'm going to get my sandwich first, you know? Like,
yeah, it was like this weird, I felt like I was in, what is that? The Summer of Love, but it was at a restaurant in conspicuous consumption, but everybody was nice. Everybody was happy. We were almost holding, it's like, oh no, you could go in front of me in line. The line's so long, like, go ahead. But yeah, then they ran out of sandwiches. So I guess it's a moot point.
Well, what you mentioned pizza. What are your favorite toppings on pizza?
I'm pretty.
What, in your opinion, is the ideal pizza?
I mean, for me, the ideal pizza, and this is just a personal preference, is Italian sausage and pepperoni. I don't know why. That's just my favorite flavors that go together. But I like it. I think pizzas are. Pizza. Yeah, there's good ones. So onions are a good thing to have on pizza, mushrooms. So I can kind of swing with whatever. But if I'm eating it just for me, it would be Italian sausage and pepperoni.
Is there anything like that you refuse to have on pizza, or, you know, sandwiches for that matter, or just anything with, you know, that prides itself on having several ingredients?
Let's see. So foods that I wouldn't have. You know, I don't know if you've heard this in the podcast, but I'm not a big consumer of goat cheese. Like, so anything with goat cheese, I can actually taste the goat. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like when I have goat cheese, it feels like I'm like licking the goat, the goat. Like,
is it like a flashback to like when you were 7 years old on the family goat farm or something, and like you had a traumatic memory or something?
I don't know. I just feel like maybe my taste buds are extra sensitive to goat cheese. I'm trying to think what other stuff I don't like. Liver. So yeah, but I don't know what it is. When I taste goat cheese, all I can picture is like a goat that hasn't been washed in a long time. And I'm like, this is exactly what this cheese tastes like. So no goat cheese on my pizza or any other sandwiches or anything like that.
Maybe it's just that visualization. Maybe your imagination is just so strong that it alters your perception of the things that you're, you know, ingesting. Like, you seem to still have retained, you know, just judging by the podcast alone, like you seem to be having retained that sort of childlike imagination that just, you know, in most people when they get to be adults in the depressing grown-up world just kind of, you know, it brings them down and all that. It seems like you just kind of retained that and just now kind of have the best of both worlds, you know, of being like a child in an adult's body. Like, not, I don't mean that as an insult or anything, but I mean it as a compliment, actually, like that you have like that sort of imagination and creativity, you know, that most people just know, I don't know what hat he pulls this stuff out of, you know, like.
Thank you. I appreciate I take it as a compliment. I mean, I wish I could be more childlike sometimes and not take stuff so seriously, or be like, or have these adult worries, because I find that it's like, oh, is this really worth stressing about? And when you're a kid, I mean, I guess some of your needs might be provided for, but it's not easy being a kid either. But they do retain this sense of play.
Yeah, the world is a scary place for a young child.
Right. But then you could still play quietly or lie down. Like my favorite things were like listening to music and reading books and then playing with toys. And I'm like still thinking about like getting back into playing with toys because I'm like, man, it was so fun. Like being like, I always think about
hour to this day. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think about like what my neighbors would do if I busted out some like dinosaurs and action figures and started playing in the front of our building. But I'm like, oh man, there's this perfect area for it with like these bushes and this gravel. And I'm like, oh yeah, you could have the dinosaurs, get some robots, and it's dinosaurs versus robots. So yeah, I guess I still am a kid for sure. Yeah.
Well, let's finish the food stuff first. Let's before we meander our way into other territory here. Let's cut back to the sandwich, so to speak.
Yeah.
Let's get it. Foods you like, foods you don't like, favorite meals, build your own stuff. Like if you at a restaurant, what would it be like? All that kind of stuff. Just have at it.
Well, I like making bread. That's like one thing. Now as an adult, this is a pro tip for people like that are like me, like a kid, but then you become an adult and you find out these adult things. Like at some age when you're supposed to be a grown up, you got to go, when you go to someone's house, you're supposed to bring something with you. Like, so it's like, oh, it's a potluck or, hey, come over for dinner. But it's like, oh, if you could bring a side dish.
Yeah.
So
it's like, that's your attendance ticket,
Right. So I've got two. I like to make bread. Like there's like this no knead bread recipe, though a couple of my friends have told me that they like kneading their bread and it's so easy to make. And then you bring it to somebody's house and they're like, holy cow, like, and it tastes good. Or go to the store and buy cookies. So that's the other one. If I didn't make bread on the way to the place. Yeah. Everybody loves cookies.
Like, show me someone who doesn't like cookies, and like for a reason other than like medical, like they're allergic to them or like something like that. Like if they're perfectly capable of eating and digesting cookies and they choose not to, just why? And this is open to all members of our audience here, all our viewers. Well, why? What do you got against cookies? What did cookies do to you? Did cookies kill your family? I don't think so. The anti-cookie establishment's going to be tough to crack. Yeah. Yeah. But okay, so so who do you think's more powerful, Wizbo or Frobbles?
Ooh, I'm familiar with either of these, so I might have to just judge them on names. Wizbo. Let me see if I could spell them first. Wizbo, Wizbo. Is that Wizbo?
Well, the way I spell it is Wizzbo.
Wizzbo. Okay, that changes things because there's two Z's in there.
The power of the H has been lost, but replaced with a double Z.
So Wizbo, and then what was the other?
Frobbles.
Oh boy, Frobbles. Could you use it in a sentence, please? Frobbles.
Okay. The dwarf frobbles across his lawn.
Frobbles. Frob. Frobble. ILES. Frobbles. Oh, more for two.
You're gonna get an 80% on this spelling bee exam. It's FROBBLES.
Okay, so Frobbles versus Wizbo. Two B's versus two Z's. Let's see. So then Frobble sounds cute. Wizbo sounds powerful, but the bow to me says that, Wizbo could trip or be a little bit clumsy. And then Frobbles sounds like Frobbles could be cute, but maybe not. So, I'm thinking like Wizbo would start off with the advantage. Then Frobbles would use some kind of cute thing to distract Wizbo. Wizbo would trip. But I don't know, like, when you have a name like Wizbo, you've probably been through a lot. When you have a name like Frobbles, maybe because it's a cuter name, like people have been a little bit easier on you. So I would say that Wizbo, even though Wizbo gets knocked down, Wizbo gets back up. So I'm going to go with Wizbo, like, for the win.
Oh man, I like how you give them origin stories and everything, and like narrate the fight and everything. This would be great. All right, I'm liking this so much. I'm gonna give you another set here. So, Stuve versus the waffle making pet.
Okay, Stuve versus the waffle making pet. Stuve. Now Stuve's kind of mysterious to me, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to come up with a backstory for Stuve. But someone like Stuve, they seem like they like a little confident. I would like to be Stuve. I would like to like they say, "Who are you, Stuve?" Like, I guess it's kind of hard to say. Like, you'd have to be Stuve to say that because it's like I would just say Stuve. I'd roll it off too soon instead of Stuve. I'm Stuve. Who the heck do you think I am? Waffle making pet though has to have the advantage just because if you could constantly make waffles, then I would imagine you could also alter those waffles or use it like so. I'm going to give it to waffle making pet.
Could turboize them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Interesting. So now, like, okay, so final boss battle now: waffle making pet versus Wizbo. Because Wizbo was the first one, right?
Yeah. So Wizbo. I mean, I'm going with Wizbo. Part of it is just because I've started to like Wizbo, and I feel like so I have a bias, I guess. And it's nothing against waffle making pet, but then I'm seeing like Wizbo having some sort of portal type power, and all the waffles go through the portal, and maybe it circles around back and hits waffle making pet in the back of the head, and then Wizbo says, you know what? Like, one, I love waffles. Two, I don't have a pet. And three, I'm really nice and I'm good at scratching waffle making pets behind the ears. So why don't we team up after, I won, but well, let's team up. So that would be my conclusion for that one.
Huh. So Wizbo wouldn't so much defeat the waffle making pet as sort of like convert it to like his side, basically.
Yeah, like a little bit like Taekwondo or something, like take the energy, use it defensively to gain the advantage, but not in it like a soft power way, and then say, hey, like we could still fight, but Wizbo and waffle making pet or waffle making pet WMP.
Not war,
Yeah. Yeah, eat waffles. Like eat waffles, make waffles, pet waffle pets.
War, yeah. So yeah, feel free to use all this on your podcast if you want. I think this would be great material. Like, I honestly think I could see like an entire like hour to hour and a half long episode of just like these four characters and maybe more. Like if you want me to send you more characters, I got a whole list of them that I made up and everything. We got the Montabo, we got Akabob, we got the Kragalo, we got the Owl, we got a whole bunch of them. I'm blanking on the rest for whatever reason, but there's a whole cast of characters, and I think that'd be really cool, like to play out like some sort of like fight sequence, some sort of like sci-fi comic book type like improv, thing, and like you spend the first like 10 minutes establishing the characters and the origin stories or whatever, like you're introducing them like you would game show contestants or something, like
Wizbo. So where do you like these characters are like where do you come up with the characters? Like do you write about them or do you draw them or what do you currently do with the characters?
You gotta ask my like 4 to 7 year old self about that, honestly, because I was really young when I came up with a lot of this stuff. Basically, my backstory is I spent a lot of time alone as a child. I was on a different sleep schedule than the rest of my family and everything, and I didn't have like a phone or a laptop or anything or access to the internet or whatever. So I was basically just bored a lot, and I was just alone in my room for like 12 hours a day. And so to pass the time, I just started like coming up with a whole bunch of things. I would just write stuff, I would draw stuff, I would build stuff, And
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like me. That's where my podcast came from. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, like sit in my room, like staring at the wall and being like, oh, okay. Huh. Yeah. Or like writing stories. Yeah.
Your podcast actually inspired me too. That's where a lot of my inspiration comes from. I've had this YouTube channel for a long time. This podcast, by the way, is just a specific subdivision of my YouTube channel. But I've had that for a while. This podcast is newer, but I have a series now which you can check out called Hello, Greetings, and Salutations, which is sort of a hybrid, like crossover. It's not like fan fiction or anything. I mean, it's completely original, but I mean, as far as like the delivery method and the sort of style that it's done in, it's sort of a cross between Welcome to Night Vale and Sleep With Me podcast. So I just thought it'd be an interesting thing is like, I just start off with there's the title of the episode. Like, for example, you say the title of the episode is Chips. And so it would start off with, hello, greetings, and salutations, listeners. So I was eating a bag of chips the other day, and I got to thinking, and then it just goes, and it's never mentioned again. Like, the point is, go, like, on a side tangent and then never return from it. And it just keeps going down and down. And by, 3 minutes in, you're talking about like what cars are like in the Andromeda galaxy, or like, what the dolphin people of Stuvian 7, carry on in their backpacks, or, like whatever, like, it gets really absurd. I'm a fan of absurdist humor. It's my favorite type, but like, and yeah, it just goes completely off the rails. But speaking of your podcast and Welcome to Night Vale, I noticed it's been added to the theme song as of I think a few months ago or so, that it we're so proud that we can dance to be part of Night Vale Presents, and so I looked that up. I'm like, because I discovered your podcast first. And so then, I looked it up, Night Vale Presents. And so at that time, I had just been introduced to Welcome to Night Vale, and I was up to episode like 5 or 6 or whatever. And so I'm like, oh, what? They're related? 2 of my podcasts of all time are related? So what's the deal there? What's the relationship? Because I still am curious.
So have you listened to Good Morning Night Vale too? Like, as they definitely check that one out next, because it's Symphony, Hal, and Meg that play characters on Welcome to Night Vale, and they recap every episode starting from the first episode, and they'll like interview.
Well, it's like a director's commentary.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like it's a fun show. It's like such a fun add-on to the original podcast. But I think it was just like when I first started podcasting, and when the Night Vale team first started podcasting, it was like in the 2013, 2014. And I remember at some point I had missed when Night Vale started. And then someone was like, oh, if you listen to Welcome to Night Vale, it kind of has the same feel as your show. Or like it's a little bit different, but, same kind of humor like we're talking about, or same kind of sense of viewpoint. And so I started listening to it. And then I started listening as Joseph and Jeffrey kind of came out with other projects like Alice Isn't Dead and Within the Wires. And then we just kind of was like, I was a fan of theirs, and they checked out my podcast, and they were like, oh yeah, we really like what you're doing. And then it was just, at some point it was like, oh, like trying to, just stay in touch and like figure out how we could help one another and help other people in the network, I guess, like little by little. Yeah. Oh, did I lose you? Wonder, let me hang up and see if you call me back.